Have you ever imagined facing an accusation of infidelity while discovering that your babies are of a different color? Stay until the end to find out an outcome that will change everything you thought you knew. Luisa Martinez, a 28-year-old nurse, navigated her days with a mix of compassion and resilience. Her life was deeply intertwined with that of her high school boyfriend, Javier, a 30-year-old accountant. Their relationship was a testament to enduring love and shared dreams. Javier, equally committed to their relationship, had flourished since his adolescent years at a local high school in Madrid. Their story was one of immediate connection, a classic high school sweetheart tale that never separated them. Luisa often recalled their first meeting at a school basketball game where Javier was cheering for her from the stands. "I remember how you shouted my name so loudly that everyone else seemed to disappear," Luisa would say, laughing as they sat in their cozy living room surrounded by memories of their shared history. Javier would smile, taking her hand. "How could I forget it?" he knew. "That you would be mine forever." Their conversations often fell into these memories, reinforcing the bonds they had formed over the years. As they grew together, so did their aspirations. Luisa pursued nursing with a passion for helping others, while Javier found his calling in numbers, rising in a local financial firm. Their nights were filled with shared dreams of a future family, discussing how they would raise their children with love and laughter in a home full of happiness. "The dream of watching our children play in the garden is what I want most," Luisa would say, her eyes shining with the image of a perfect future. Javier, always supporting her, shared her vision. And together they embarked on the path to parenthood, unaware of the challenges that awaited them. Years passed trying to conceive. Each negative test weighed on their perfect dream. It was a silent struggle they endured together until a visit to a specialist revealed the truth. Javier had fertility issues. "It's okay," Luisa assured him as they processed the news. "We will resolve this together." Determined, they turned to artificial insemination, a hope in their quest for a family. The procedure was a testament to their resilience, choosing to face the medical challenge with optimism. "This could work," Javier would say, squeezing her hand as they waited in the sterilized clinic where the insemination would take place. Luisa, always optimistic, would smile at him. "Whatever happens, we have each other, and that's more than enough." Their dialogue at the clinic was a mix of hopeful whispers and laughter, a balance in the clinical coldness around them. Leaving the clinic that day, walking under the vast Madrid sky, their conversation turned towards the future, full of hope and anticipation. "Let's keep believing," Luisa would say as they walked hand in hand, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. As night fell, the Madrid skyline lit up in a mosaic of lights, casting a warm glow through the windows of Luisa and Javier's home. Exhausted but euphoric from their day at the clinic, they found solace in the familial comfort of their living room. Cuddled on the sofa, Luisa rested her head on Javier's shoulder, their hands intertwined. "You know," Luisa began softly, her voice a reflective whisper, "from those high school hallways until now, it has been quite a journey with you." Javier smiled, his eyes reflecting the affection in hers. "Every step, every challenge has been worth it, because it was with you." They spent hours like this, reminiscing about their mischief at the prom, their first trip together to the coast, and the countless quiet nights like this, filled with dreams and laughter. The next morning, the rhythm of daily life resumed. Luisa returned to the hospital, her steps a little more cautious, her mind occupied with the possible new life growing inside her. She fulfilled her duties as a nurse with a gentler touch, her own condition making her even more empathetic with her patients. Javier, back in his office, found himself distracted, his thoughts often wandering towards Luisa. He sent her text messages throughout the day, each one a small gesture of his care. "How are you feeling today? Remember to take it easy," one would say, bringing a smile to Luisa's face in the midst of a busy shift. Weeks passed in a similar routine, each day a mix of routine and silent anticipation. But soon, Luisa began to notice subtle changes, first slight, then undeniable. Persistent nausea took hold of her, and with each passing day, her suspicion grew. It could be the thought was both terrifying and exciting. One morning, with her heart racing and hands trembling, Luisa took a pregnancy test at home. The minutes waiting for the result felt like hours, each second heavy with possibility. When she finally saw the positive sign, it was clear as day. She was pregnant. The insemination had worked. Overwhelmed by emotion, Luisa remained enveloped in joyful incredulity until reality brought her back. Today was the day she would share this miraculous news with Javier. She planned everything perfectly, preparing a small celebration just for the two of them at home. That night, when Javier walked in through the door, his face tired from work, he was not greeted by the usual silence of their living room but by Luisa, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Javier, we did it," she whispered, handing him the positive pregnancy test. For a moment, Javier froze, then pure and radiant joy spread across his face. He hugged Luisa tightly, laughter and tears mingling between them. "Really, we're going to be parents?" he asked, his voice filled with emotion. Luisa felt her own laughter bubbling. "Yes, but I thought we could go to the doctor tomorrow to confirm it officially." Javier agreed immediately, his practical nature tempering his joy with the need for certainty. "Let's do it. I want to be absolutely sure before we start planning anything." That night, they went to bed with hearts full of hope, the challenges of the past fading into a bright and promising future as they lay in the darkness. The soft hum of their shared dream filled the space around them, a dream that was slowly and beautifully becoming reality. The next morning, Javier woke up early, his heart still full of happiness from the news that had changed his life. With silent enthusiasm, he got out of bed to prepare a surprise for Luisa. Breakfast in bed. He carefully arranged Luisa's favorite breakfast on a tray: scrambled eggs, fresh strawberries, and a warm croissant with a cup of decaf coffee, taking great care to make everything perfect. When he returned, Luisa was barely awake, gently stretching under the sheets, her eyes bright. "What is all this?" she exclaimed, her smile wide and genuine. "Just something to start our big day in the best way," Javier replied, placing the tray on her lap and planting a soft kiss on her forehead. They ate together, talking about names for the baby, their hopes for the future, and how they imagine their life as parents. Each shared vision brought them closer, weaving their dreams into the fabric of their reality. After breakfast, they got ready and headed to the clinic. The car ride was filled with reflection and excitement as they reviewed the obstacles they had overcome to reach this point of hope. Javier squeezed Luisa's hand, their eyes meeting in a silent promise of continued support. "No matter what happens, we're in this together," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Upon arriving at the clinic, they found themselves among a small crowd of expectant mothers, each at different stages of life, but united by the common thread of potential motherhood. The waiting room was a murmur of conversations with couples and single women, sharing stories and experiences. Luisa and Javier sat in silence, occasionally watching, joining the conversation around them. A particular conversation caught Luisa's attention. A young woman sitting alone shared her story with a close couple. "He left," she said, her voice a mix of resistance and sadness. "He said he wasn't ready to be a father, so it looks like I'll do this alone." Luisa's heart sank. Upon hearing the woman's words, she instinctively looked at Javier. His presence, his unwavering support felt like a beacon in that moment. Javier, sensing her gaze, turned to her, reading the gratitude in her eyes. He took her hand and whispered, "I'm here, Luisa, no matter what." Moved by the conversation and their intertwined hands, Luisa felt a wave of gratitude for the partnership she had with Javier. Unlike the woman's abandonment story, she had Javier, who was ready to face not only the joys but also the challenges of parenthood with her. This realization deepened her appreciation for him, reinforcing the strength of their bond. As they waited for their turn to see the doctor, when their names were finally called, they stood up together, a united front, ready to face any news that awaited them, their hearts full of hope and their hands tightly intertwined. The atmosphere in the clinic was charged with anticipation as Luisa and Javier waited for the results of the pregnancy test. Each passing minute seemed to stretch longer, Each tick of the clock resonated like a drum in their tense hearts. Finally, the doctor returned, a smile forming on his lips, a smile that spoke volumes. "Congratulations, Luisa and Javier. The test is positive. You're going to be parents," he announced. Luisa's breath caught in her throat. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she turned to Javier, who was already radiant. The anxiety that had clouded her morning dissipated instantly, replaced by radiant and overwhelming happiness. They hugged tightly, their hearts swelling with the promise of the new life they would soon welcome. Weeks later, still riding the wave of their confirmed pregnancy, Luisa and Javier returned to the clinic for the first ultrasound. They held hands, their fingers intertwined with nerves and excitement as the ultrasound technician prepared the equipment. When the cold gel was spread over Luisa's belly and the probe began to slide, the screen came to life, revealing not one or two, but 3 distinct heartbeats. "You're going to have triplets," the technician said, his voice a mix of congratulations and caution. The news hit Luisa and Javier like a bolt of lightning. Triplets. The screen showed 3 little lives, each heartbeat a rapid drumroll resonating in the room. Their joy was palpable, but it was quickly tempered by a wave of practical concerns. 3 babies meant 3 times the responsibility, 3 times the care, certainly 3 times the love. The journey back home was filled with excited activity, mixed with episodes of contemplative silence. 3, can you believe it? Luisa murmured, still incredulous. "We'll handle it, Luisa. We've overcome everything together. We'll overcome this too," Javier responded, his voice firm but his mind racing with the logistics of expanding their family so significantly at once. As the weeks turned into months, Luisa's belly grew, and so did her anticipation. The baby's room, originally planned for 1, was redesigned for 3. Each night, Javier read stories aloud, one hand on Luisa's stomach, feeling the gentle kicks of their unborn children. These moments became their sanctuary, a time of connection not only between them, but also with the little beings eager to meet them. The due date approached rapidly, and with it grew a mix of excitement and the natural fears of first-time parents, magnified by 3. Luisa and Javier prepared meticulously, attending prenatal classes, reading about triplets, and adjusting their lives for the monumental change on the horizon. But as the saying goes, even the best-laid plans often go awry. Luisa and Javier, caught up in their dreams and preparations, remained happily unaware of the challenges that would soon test the strength of their bond and their readiness for the unexpected. They knew their lives were about to change forever, but what awaited them was beyond what they could have imagined. As Luisa's pregnancy progressed, the reality of giving birth to triplets became more imminent, underscoring the need for careful medical supervision. During one of their routine prenatal visits, the doctor discussed the logistics of the delivery with Luisa and Javier. Given the complexities associated with a triplet pregnancy, the doctor recommended scheduling a cesarean section to minimize risks for both Luisa and the babies. Seated in the softly lit office, Luisa listened attentively as the doctor explained the procedure. "We need to plan a cesarean to ensure the safest possible delivery for you and your babies," the doctor advised, his tone both reassuring and firm. He explained the reasons, pointed out the baby's positions, and the potential for premature delivery common in multiple births. Javier took Luisa's hand, squeezing it gently as they both felt understanding. The doctor then proposed potential dates, flipping through his calendar to find a suitable window. After a brief consultation, a date was set just 3 weeks away. It was close enough to feel real, but far enough to stir a whirlwind of emotions in the expectant parents. As they left the clinic, the weight of the scheduled date hung between them, a tangible reminder of the rapid change looming in their lives. The journey back home was more silent than usual, each lost in their own thoughts, mentally preparing for what was to come. The baby's room, once a project of imagination, was now ready and waiting, a cozy sanctuary in pastel colors with 3 small cribs lined up side by side. As Luisa and Javier parted at the door, looking at the room, it seemed to return their mixed feelings of excitement and nervousness. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity and preparation. Javier meticulously reviewed and rechecked his hospital bags, ensuring that everything Luisa and the babies might need was packed and ready. Meanwhile, Luisa, increasingly physically tired but emotionally resilient, spent long hours resting, often alone, feeling the soft and comforting kicks of her babies. Every night, lying in bed, the couple talked about their hopes and fears. "It's almost time," Luisa would say with a hint of apprehension in her voice. Javier, always optimistic, would respond with comforting words. "We're ready, Luisa. Everything is going to be fine." Despite their comforting words, the imminent date of the cesarean brought with it a growing sense of apprehension, a mix of fear of the unknown and the natural anxiety of first-time parents facing the monumental task of welcoming not one, but 3 new beings into their world. The morning sun was just rising as Luisa and Javier headed to the insemination clinic, each step driven by a mix of apprehension and hope, their hearts determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious genetics of their triplets, believing that somewhere within the clinic's records or procedures was the answer they so desperately needed. Upon arrival, they were not greeted with understanding or compassion, but with a cold professionalism that bordered on disdain. The clinic staff, seeing their purpose, directed them to the clinic manager, a stern woman named Mrs. Herrera, who had been overseeing the clinic's operations for years. Luisa and Javier explained their situation in detail, their voices filled with emotion as they recounted the events before and after the birth of their children. They pleaded with Mrs. Herrera to examine the records, to consider any possible errors, however small, that might have occurred during the insemination process. Mrs. Herrera listened to them with a stone-like expression, her lips tightly pressed as she absorbed their story. Once they finished, she responded in a firm and unwavering tone. "Our clinic adheres to high standards. We verify all samples and procedures. It is simply not possible that an error has occurred on our part." Javier's frustration increased. He pressed further, "Please, just verify the records again. That's all we're asking for. Something doesn't add up, and it's not just about us. There are 3 children whose future could be affected by this." Luisa's eyes filled with tears as she added, "We need to understand our babies. Please help us." Despite their emotional plea, Mrs. Herrera's stance remained unchanged. "I empathize with your situation," she said, her voice devoid of warmth. "However, the possibility of an error is non-existent. Our controls are too stringent. If you believe there has been an error, I would suggest that perhaps the error is not in our procedures but elsewhere." Their request for a deeper investigation into their case was unequivocally denied. Feeling a mix of helplessness and indignation, Luisa and Javier withdrew, leaving the clinic with heavy hearts. The clinic's lack of cooperation was a severe blow, leaving them with more questions than answers. As they walked back to their car, the weight of the unresolved mystery pressed down on them. Luisa leaned on Javier, her tears flowing freely. Javier wrapped an arm around her, his own eyes wet as he stared straight ahead. "What do we do now?" Luisa murmured, her voice breaking. Javier sighed deeply, a mix of anger and determination settling in his chest. "We'll find another way," he said firmly. "There has to be another way to get the answers we need." Luisa and Javier sat in their car outside the clinic, the silence between them weighed down with defeat and frustration. Just as Javier turned the key in the ignition, ready to leave another dead end behind, a loud knock on the window startled them both. A woman, her face filled with tears, frantically gestured for them to lower the window. Hesitant, Javier obliged, and the woman, panting between sobs, introduced herself as Mariana, a lab technician at the clinic. I was in the hallway," she stammered, her voice choked with emotion. "I heard everything you said to Mrs. Herrera." Luisa and Javier exchanged a bewildered look, unsure of how to respond. Mariana continued, her words coming out hurriedly. "The day of your insemination was very difficult for me. It was the anniversary of my son's death. I drowned in a tragic accident a year before. I was emotionally distracted. I shouldn't have been working. I mixed the samples, I confess." A moving echo of her own despair hung in the air. "I think I made a mistake. I don't know exactly what, but I'm sorry. I've felt it since that day." And upon hearing her story, She couldn't ignore it any longer. Luisa, her heart pounding, reached out to touch Mariana's trembling hand. "What do you think happened?" Mariana wasn't sure. She admitted in a barely audible whisper, "I want to help you. I need to fix this, not just for you, but for myself. Give me a few days, I need to review the records, talk to some people. I'll find something, I promise." Javier, who had been listening attentively, finally spoke. "How can we trust you?" His voice was cautious, but not unpleasant. After all, trust was a luxury they could barely afford. Mariana held his gaze, her determination clear. "Because I ask for nothing in return, and I'm risking my job by talking to you. I just need to know the truth, whether it's my fault or not." Seeing the genuine remorse and resolve in her eyes, Luisa nodded slowly. "All right, Mariana. We await your call." With that, Mariana gave them a grateful smile, wiped her tears, and hurried back to the clinic as she disappeared inside. Luisa leaned back at her car, a spark of hope igniting in her chest. "Maybe this is everything," Luisa said. Javier, with skepticism tempered by the possibility of a new clue, simply squeezed Luisa's hand in response. "Let's hope so," he said softly as they drove away from the clinic, the weight of their uncertainty slightly lifted by the promise of Mariana's investigation. For the first time in weeks, they felt that not all doors were closed. They had a potential ally and, with her help, the truth could finally come to light. In the days that followed, Luisa and Javier anxiously awaited any news from Mariana, their minds a whirlwind of possibilities and desires. Each passing day was a test of patience, but with mutual support and the tentative hope provided by Mariana, they found the strength to endure the wait. The days following their meeting with Mariana were filled with cautious optimism that had been absent in the previous weeks. Luisa and Javier found themselves in a state of suspended anticipation, holding on to each other each day as they waited for the call that could change their lives. They tried to maintain a routine for the sake of the triplets, whose innocent laughter and playful mischief provided a much-needed distraction from the uncertainty. In quiet moments, after the children went to bed, Luisa and Javier discussed the possibilities of what Mariana might discover. Each conversation returned to the same unresolved questions about the clinic's procedures and the integrity of the sample handling. Javier, previously consumed by doubt and pain, now focused his energy on understanding the techniques that could have led to their current situation. Meanwhile, Luisa found herself dealing with a mix of emotions. There was hope, certainly, that Mariana's investigation would vindicate her, but also a deep fear of what it could mean if errors were discovered. The implications could be far-reaching, not only for their family, but for others who had placed their trust in the clinic's competence. One night, as they sat together in the soft glow of the living room lamp, Javier broke the silence. "No matter what happens, we've been through a lot. This situation has tested us in ways I never imagined," he said, reaching out for Luisa's hand. Luisa nodded, squeezing his hand in response. "Yes, it's shown us that we can face anything, as long as we do it together. I'm scared, but I also have hope," he added. "Hope that the truth will bring us some peace." Their bond, forged through trials, misunderstandings, and the shared burden of the unknown, had become stronger. She knew that future challenges could test them even more, but now they were united in their determination to face them as a team. If this video has helped you connect more with yourself and inspired you on your path of growth, take action and subscribe to the Vidasta Inspiration channel to discover more stories that will fill you with motivation and hope. I would love to hear your opinion, so leave a comment telling me how this story has impacted your life or what reflections it has left you with. And if you think this message can inspire someone you know, share it with your friends so they too can find inspiration and purpose in their lives.